Thank you. Glad you guys are here. Bless you. Couple of things. I realized that I forgot to say this earlier, and I don't take it personally that as soon as I grabbed the mic, a child started crying. But a lot of you guys are really talented, and on Wednesday night there's the opportunity for a talent show, I believe. If you are interested in displaying your talents, which you could get points for, Christine has confirmed you could get points for, you can go to Christine and you can tell her, I want to compete. Christine, would you raise your hand? Pete, will you point at her? Maria, would you also point at her? Thank you. So now you guys know where she is. These talents could be anything. It could be basket weaving. It could be distance spitting. It could be always being able to pull something out of your belly button. There's all kinds of things that it could be. But I would take you at that one. I have talked about showing off my ability to make a PowerPoint for this talent show. So talents come in all forms. I'm very excited to be with you guys. I love being at camp. I love being with you guys. I think of you guys as part of my family. And so I love getting to come and see you guys every year. I had two thoughts as I was preparing for this. One isn't related to my message. I just wanted to say it. But I was thinking about the things that frustrated me in high school. And one of them was Burger King. I didn't get it. I've tried it. I don't like it. There are people who say they like it, but they don't. And I don't think it's good, and I just wanted to say that. That's not related to what I wanted to talk about, but I felt like I needed to get that off my chest. The other thing that I thought of is I was not very good at math, unlike Anna. But there was this thing that would happen when you would go to take your math test, and I would finish it real quickly, and I would go to turn it in, and I would turn it in, and I was like, gosh, I think I nailed it. And I'd get it back, and I was like, I know I got those answers right, but I didn't get 100. What happened? And then I would just see those three words that I hated, which was show your work. And it drove me crazy, because I'd get the right answer. And I still wouldn't get it because she said, I have to show your work. Now, granted, that was in middle school. And then all of a sudden in high school, there's this new thing that happens where all of a sudden you love showing your work because there's these two magic words, partial credit. Which is where a teacher takes pity on you. And it's like, you tried to do something that resembled math. And we want to still give you some points for what's going on here. And along the way, in the trying, there's something that happens where they're like, well, there's something that's good that's happening here, and so we should at least reward it. And along the way, you pass and end up getting a college degree, though you're still really uncertain what calculus actually means. But I'm no Zach Hadia. Zach, do you think this is a game? This is not a game, Zach. This is not a game. Alina? If that's how teaching works, that does explain a lot. Pete, can you confirm this? There's no answer. I love the theme of broken becoming because I love the idea of some level of what it means to show your work. And I love the idea that there's partial credit along the way because I mess up a lot, as my dad was saying. That's a sentence that a dad can say because he watches you a lot and is like, gosh, he is not nailing it all the time. But I do, and I'm very open about that. I like the idea of becoming. Anna did a great job of depicting what the word becoming means. One definition that I don't believe you said last night, but becoming can also be used as a compliment. In that Molly looks very becoming tonight, which is a way of saying lovely or beautiful, hey guys. So I like that definition of becoming because I think there's something interesting in that becoming can be three different things. I think becoming can be a verb. We are becoming something. Brody is becoming the world's strongest man. Kirsten has, I guess, already become the world's greatest squatter. I don't know what happens, but there's something magical that happens. There's something about the becoming that is happening actively. There is also the adjective, like Molly. Molly is very becoming. But I think what I want to talk about tonight is the idea of becoming as a noun, which is to say, when you are a basketball player, you're a basketball player by adjective. But when I say I am the world's greatest basketball player, it's because every time I play basketball, I dominate. It's in the action of it that it becomes who I am. There is something about when I play basketball, I am a basketball player. And I think there's something about when we are becoming, we are becomers, which is why we've decided to rename this year to Camp Over Becomers. So that's a nightmare for the marketing team. Christina is not happy. We printed the t-shirts. It says here, wait for standing ovation. I'll move on from that. I'll move on. Thank you guys. Thank you. And what I like about the idea of becoming as a noun is it makes it okay with the idea that you are constantly becoming something. You are constantly becoming something. I am constantly becoming something. When I sit on my couch, I am constantly becoming someone who sits on my couch. When I eat a lot of cookies, I am becoming something that I'm not quite sure is the becoming that I describe Molly as. Quick word on the Cookie Monster. I am offended by how many cookies he wastes by that manner in which he eats those cookies. It is a wasteful practice. It's not efficient. Once again, sorry, off my notes here. There's something about the becoming that then, as you are okay with that being who you are, that's all of a sudden you're not worried about what you will become. You're worrying about the process of becoming. One thing I was thinking about is what makes somebody a runner? Is somebody a runner because they get to the finish line, or are they a runner because they are running? I'm open to people raising hands. For people who say finish liners, you can raise your hand. If you would say because you're running, you can raise your hand as well. I think so as well, which I'm really glad about, because I was telling everyone in our, once again, if you've been in our youth group, you once again know that I'm one of the greatest athletes of our generation, possibly of all time. And you have heard about my trials with running. Honestly, it's not even just if you're in your youth group. If you see me for a second, you probably can tell what a specimen we're dealing with here. There's something about that lava lamp-shaped body type that is really, it's what people are going for. It's just clumps gathering and detaching in places that they shouldn't be. And there's, as I'm running, I am glad they constantly say this thing at the beginning of my runs, which is, take it slow and take it easy. We want to make sure you survive. And I always feel like, first off, you don't need to say that to me. Like, I can tell based off the fact that I constantly feel like I'm bleeding and I pull up my shirt and it's just normal. There's a moment where it's like, I hope I'm bleeding because at least it would make sense for why I feel this way. But in it, he also keeps saying, you're a runner. Like, you're running. And so no matter how bad that is, you are a runner. And I appreciate that. Because as I think about quitting, I'm like, if I stop running, I'm not a runner. If I start quitting, I'm a quitter. Walker, there's many moments where I become a power walker. That is definitely something that happens. But I think there's something about recognizing that you are what you are based off the process of what's happening. Anna did a good job of talking about process last night. It's not necessarily the destination that you're going towards that makes you what you're going to be. It is the process that you're in and how you are going through it that makes it. If you are constantly running, you are going to be a runner. If you are constantly watching Netflix, you are going to be a Netflix watcher. And that's not bad at sometimes, but in general, it's worth thinking about. There is this insane movie that I want to talk about. Have you guys ever watched Wizard of Oz? If you have not seen it, get ready for a bunch of spoiler alerts. It came out in 1949, so this is your fault at this point. Once again, guys, a bonkers movie. I'm going to describe it first, and then we're going to get into my point with it. There's this girl named Dorothy from Kansas who gets whirled up in a tornado with her dog named Toto. Toto has no point in the plot. They just put her in just for there to be like a little bit more background to this character. And she ends up in this magical land of Oz with a bunch of like small Teletubby-like men, and it's being haunted by this witch who like is the bad sheep, black sheep of the flock, who has these flying monkeys who ride bicycles. The bicycles never touch the ground. They're flying bicycles. They have wings of their own. Why do they need the bicycles? And then the way that you defeat the witch is by throwing water on her. It never rains the whole movie, I guess. Like, I think about this all the time. And then along the way, she has to go find this wizard who ultimately tells her that home was in her shoes the whole time. You may think that sounds insane. This movie was very successful. I can't describe it. People consider it one of the greatest of all times. If you're holding your hands up with questions, I am too. We watched it as kids because I think they're hoping kids won't catch on to what's going on. But there's a point to what I'm saying. Wizard of Oz has this really interesting thing that's going on, that as she's going to try to find her way back to Kansas, which is where she's from, if you want to hear my southern accent, you can talk to me later. She is trying to find her way to Kansas, and she meets these three friends. One is the Tin Man. Do you guys know the other two? Lion and Scarecrow. What does the Tin Man want? A heart. Nice. Okay, good. Active watchers. What does the Scarecrow want? A brain. I get that. And what does the lion want? Courage. And they have this belief that in this land, that if they can get to Oz, this wizard will be able to give them everything they're wanting. And if they can get to Oz, their problems will be done of not being a courageous lion, of being a brainless scarecrow, and of being a heartless Tin Man. Did I get those right? It doesn't matter. It's honestly, I'm using this movie. It's not really important to my point. We will get to it later. And they have to go through this whole journey with Dorothy, where they have to do all these things that are actually kind of courageous, and actually kind of brainy, and actually kind of heartful, even though they don't have those things. And as they get to the wizard, as they get to this place, they pull back this curtain, and it's just this guy who his name might be Dean, and he is really good at IT and has a great smoke machine. And they realize he's not even a wizard. He has no sorcery powers whatsoever. And as they are all of a sudden are being dismayed by the fact that their hopes and their fight and this whole journey what they went through to get this heart, to get this brain, to get this courage was all for nothing, Dorothy interjects in a very cinematic way, and the music changes because they want you to know that you should be feeling something right now. And she says, hey, she didn't say this, I'm paraphrasing. She said, hey, bros, you guys have something happened on the way, and you guys aren't lacking the things that you felt like you were lacking. The things that you were wanting, you've got it. You are lion, you have courage. And Tin Man, you have brain? Heart? Thank you. And Scarecrow, you have a brain. And somewhere along the way in the journey, they actually got what they were looking for. There is a part of the process that ends up being more important than the destination. The racer isn't just racing because he wants to run, because he wants to finish it. He's racing because there's a whole journey that's part of it that makes him a racer. Without that, you're actually just getting to the end and getting a medal and going home. It's the race that is where he becomes an actual runner. I think, and I want to talk about a couple of things, and I'll give you guys a verse, and then I was really hoping to tell a little bit about my story, is that Jesus exists in the becoming process. He exists in the process. It's not necessarily that he's saying, get to this place, and you'll find me, and I'll change things for you. He exists along the way, and as you're walking with him, he starts to work in these things into you. The places where you're feeling gosh, I am not that patient, or gosh, I can get really upset easily, or gosh, I feel some levels of shame and that I don't belong in these places. And as you're walking with him, he starts to work those things into you. I want to turn to some verses, which this is a great moment if you guys have your notebooks. I should hear the whooshing of paper here. These are going to be 3 verses, which means the third place team could catapult into first place if you guys did this right. It will be John 14, 5 through 7. John, I put this little tassel here. Excuse that bump. John 14, 5 through 7. That is on page 956 for me. That is a canonized joke for anyone who speaks within a church setting. We all use that one. In this one, Jesus is talking, and there's this guy named Thomas who's really known for being curious. He's a question asker. I relate to Thomas a lot. And Thomas is asking questions about what's going to happen next. And so that's where we jump in. We are going to jump in at 5, and it says, Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? And Jesus answered, and you know Jesus answered here because I have it underlined, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know. There's a weird comma space there. You will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. And I want to focus particularly on the first thing he says, which is, I am the way. And I like that one a lot. I think I brought this up during our mini-series during a church, which is I like the idea that when he says he's the way, he says I before. I like the idea of the way being a person rather than a map, or rather than being a place that you're trying to get to, because if he's a person, that means the way to be on the way is to be with that person. If I'm getting a tour from Giovanni, my goal isn't to show myself around the whole area. My goal is to stick close to Giovanni, because right there is where I'm supposed to be, and he'll work me through where I'm supposed to go. And something about the way being with a person means that if I run too far ahead, I'm going to get lost. And if I run too slow, I'm also going to lose him. Also, if I run too far ahead, I'll miss out on some of the things that Gio is saying about the beautiful scenery, the trees, and obviously the massive amount of squirrels and vampires in our area. And there's something about that I have found to be the hardest thing for me in my life. I would say my life has been really, the hardest thing for me in my life has been the idea of being okay and learning to deal with the fact that brokenness happened in that original sin that Anna spoke of yesterday. That in Adam's fall, something happened in me, and I realized something was happening in my heart that I couldn't totally make up for. And no matter how far I pushed away from it and said that isn't part of me, it was something that was too difficult. I wanted to get a little bit into my story because I think it will be a story that will help us all, and I hope so. If not, you guys have tomatoes you can throw at me. And then after that, I wanted to say just a few questions that I think would help us. As you guys heard, I was born a gassy child to a taco-eating mother, and I was born here in Decatur, lived in San Antonio, and I grew up around a really electric family where great stories were happening, stories of deliverance, stories of people meeting Jesus. Our home was regularly filled with people like Anna, and looking around in the room, Will was around a lot of those times. I remember Nate and Serene. Nate and Serene just showed up one day. I don't remember meeting them. They were just there, and all of a sudden they were throwing water balloons at us. And that kind of stuff was just happening. And I grew up in Costa Rica and going into a life that was very missional, though I probably was really pulled back for most of it. I am a people pleaser, unless that's not okay with you guys. Otherwise, I'm totally not. No, I am a people pleaser, and I was somebody who, if I got a B, it killed me. It was like, and so I was a naturally very diligent child, and I cared a lot about cleanliness, and I cared a lot about hygiene. I was telling somebody this. I remember one time being like, I'm bored. I guess I could brush my teeth. And I was like, well, I'm already in the room. Might as well take another shower. And so that was a lot of what my life was I was really cared about being really dutiful about these different things. Around the time I being so diligent, I wasn't that relationally engaged in a lot of different pieces. And I remember as an 8-year-old, there was I remember the enemy speaking something really clearly that was not true about myself. And I believed it, and I latched onto it, and I let it become a key part of my identity for the next dozen years. And so along the way, I moved back to the U.S. I quickly became a little bit more, I was not a fan of U.S. culture. I didn't understand Glee. I don't know if you guys like Glee. It's just, once again, just not a fan of the show. I don't get it. And I really equated most U.S. culture to it. And I really struggled within it. And I started to feel like, well, gosh, maybe it's not me that's the problem. Maybe it's everyone else that's the problem. And there's something happening that, and along the way, I started to close myself off to different things. But I realized I could excel in different things. I could excel in school. I had a big personality. I had an ability to point out the plot holes to Wizard of Oz, and people found that engaging. And as I started to move up through high school and then into college, I continued to do pretty well in things, even though I realized that I was constantly compromising on dreams. I really had a dream of going to a big private school for a university. I didn't do it, and I did something that was just what got shut down for me. The Lord did a lot in that. I got to marry Molly. She's the becoming one in the back. But in the process of it, I was constantly dealing with the fact that I felt I was constantly had this brokenness in me that I was pushing aside, and I wasn't going to let people touch. I remember there being days where my dad would poke at it, and I would just be so mad because I felt like there was so much that I was doing that was right. Why is he poking at that? But there was some level of what was going on. And so then things kept going. I met Molly. Along the way, we were in the process of realizing that we were both pretty broken. It was probably the first moment. Around the time I was meeting Molly, it was probably around the first time I was coming to the realization that I was really mad and I was really hurt. And I had taken in some things that I knew weren't real. And I'd let them define me. And around that time, Molly and I started realizing that we really liked each other and we'd like to get married. But we were realizing, gosh, we are a mess. At this point, I care about you. And I cared about her enough that I was like, we can't date because I'm a little bit of a tire fire right now. And so then I said, well, at least we can pray that the Lord would do something in us if it was going to happen. And I really, honestly, as I was saying that, I don't know if I really thought that the Lord would do anything. I hadn't prayed in a long time. And so we prayed, and the next day, deliverance happened for Molly, and she was filled with the Holy Spirit, and things started to change. And I went to South Africa to be on this, to take an internship. And it resulted in a period of time where I remember, I'm very careful to say this. This hurts me a lot to say. But I just remember waking up at a hospital after I'd gotten in a fight the night before after drinking for a while. And just they said that I had just started to hit my head against a wall yelling, I hate myself. And I remember coming home thinking, gosh, Lord, you saved Molly, but I'm too far. And what's happened to me is too deep. And so I came to Molly and I said, Molly, you can't be with me. It's not, what's happened to me isn't good. And Molly looked at me and she said, Joey, have you ever thought there could be grace for you? And it hit me for a moment, for the first time in my life, that maybe the brokenness that I was feeling wasn't something that I could just overcome by myself, but that there was somebody who could overcome it for me. In the process of it, I just remember that whole week coming, and I remember talking with my parents and realizing that the lie that I had accepted about my brokenness as an 8-year-old had defined me for 12 years wasn't true. And that wasn't who I was. And so on that way, the Lord delivered me from some of those lies. And in the process of it, he started to do something that I think is really critical in this process, which he started to speak a new identity into who I was. And he started to say, the person that you were isn't who you are anymore. And the reason I had a different message prepared for this happens every year. I prepare something, and then the last day before, I trash it all, and I feel like the Lord speaks something different. I feel like what the Lord has been talking to me about, and it was what he was saying to me even last night, is I still think of myself as the guy waking up in the hospital room, recognizing that I was concussed and recognizing that I was hurting. And even though I feel like I'm somebody who now I get to walk with you guys and I get to know you guys and I get to be part of what you guys' stories, I think of myself as that guy, not as much as the guy who gets to stand up here and talk. But I've realized along the way that that's probably how we're all feeling a little bit, is that we're taking on these identities that aren't necessarily the identities that we have. And what I really would like to push us towards today, and I have a few thoughts I wanted to say right before I finished, is I wanted to say that I think we have to be okay with showing where our brokenness is if we're going to get on with our becoming. And I think there's some level of, if we can't do that, the becoming part is a waste. You're skipping a step. You're getting on the race without ever getting to the starting line. And there's something critical that happens there. And there's something where if you aren't dealing with where your heart is, and if you're not willing to show where your heart is, there's no way to get through the walls that you have up. The other things I want to say is you can't decide what the goal of your journey is. I think the whole time I remember in that season just thinking, the goal for me is to get to this college, it's to get to do these things, it's to get to a point where my parents admire me or my friends think I'm funny. Wasn't the goal, and it pulled me away from where it is. And even there's moments where I even find myself, even as somebody who's walking with the Lord, where I'm realizing I feel like the Lord wants me to do these things, and all of a sudden I realize that is not what the Lord's getting at in my heart. He's getting at some deeper pieces. You can't push yourself to be somewhere you're not. It's like what I was saying with Gio. If you move too far ahead of where Gio is, you're going to miss out on what Gio is saying. If you move to a place where Jesus isn't, you're not going to be with him, and you're going to miss out on what he's doing in that process. You'll need to learn what his voice sounds like, and try to fight to be where he is and to stay close to him. Gio is right here, and I love that because I get to see him, and he's got a great smile. But one of the tricky things sometimes with Jesus is that you can't totally see him, but he does speak, and I want to push us towards that. And some of what it looks like is if I close my eyes and Gio says, "Hi, Joey," I know Gio's voice, and I am like, "Gosh, that's Gio," and I can say, "Hey, Gio," and I love that. So learning what it means to hear his voice. And the process is don't go at it alone, and don't look to try to nail it. Look to be where you are. This is a tricky process. As you can see, I'm a mess. But there's a level of it where if we're a mess together in the process, we can start to glean some pieces. I want to say a couple things about false sincerity in the process of becoming. There is a way where you can talk, where you're showing your process to everyone, and you are actually starting to bring attention to yourself by where your brokenness is. Don't fight to stay in your brokenness. If you are being broken without moving into the becoming, that is equally weird. It's a little bit annoying, but it's weird too. And then the last thing I was hoping to say is that I think that this camp is an awesome camp. Because I think for a lot of you guys, today was awesome, and that's great, and you guys should be really proud of yourself. For a lot of you guys, you're like, gosh, this is a little bit harder than what I was signed up for. I didn't actually know what Camp Overcomers was. I saw on the flyer that Joey's face was on it, and once again, I thought that's a great athlete right there. I would like to be close to that guy. And that is a great reason to come, but you're realizing along the way that there's something different that is happening, and I think that's a place where you can lean into where the brokenness is happening for you guys. The brokenness looks like all kinds of different things. No, it's not. The focus of my message should not be focus on your brokenness. It should be okay with it so that you can become what you're going to become. I am really broken, but I really am proud of what and excited about what the Lord is helping me become. And I feel that way about you guys, and I can see you guys in different times. I can see how each of you guys has grown. I like that some of you guys I see once a year, but I can see how you've become something and what the Lord is doing. I'm excited for those pieces. And so my real hope with it is that I'm excited to see what we'll become together. I'm excited who you guys will become individually. And then along the way, I'm excited to see what the Lord will do. I love you all. I love you all so much. And with that, I'm going to end it.